Okay, and welcome back. I'm going to talk about factoring trinomials, and we're going to use a technique called bottoms up. But before I do, I have to warn you, you need to factor out the greatest common factor first. Now, you'd probably do it anyway, and for those of you that are not accustomed to doing that, you should do that. But make sure that you do that for this particular technique, otherwise what you're going to end up having is a different geometric representation of the original trinomial. Now, if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. You don't need to. It just means that you'll end up with something a little bit different than what you started off with. So make sure you factor out the greatest common factor first. And to kind of familiarize you with how this technique works, let me start off with something simple. Let's say we have a problem, x squared minus x minus 2. So what you want to do is this, set up an x, okay? Now what I'm showing you right now basically is just the understanding of this figure that I'm making here. I'll do the bottoms up on the second problem, but I need you to understand where things go and why they work the way they do. Basically, I have to kind of show you where the accelerator and the brake is before you can start driving the car. So let me show you what's going on here. So basically what you do is you take the coefficient of the middle term and you put it on the top. And then you multiply the negative 2 times the coefficient of the x squared term. And in front of the x squared term, you basically have an invisible 1. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Now, you want to find out what two numbers add up to negative 1, but at the same time, you want to find out if those two numbers multiply to negative 2. To make a negative 2, you would need a negative 1 and a 2, or a negative 2 and a 1. So basically you need a 2 and a 1. So let's go ahead and write 2 and 1. Now look at the sign here. This sign is the one that gets assigned to the bigger one of these two numbers, in this case here negative 2. So now all we do is bring down the negative 2 here and bring down our 1, and our answer is going to be this, x minus 2, okay, so it's x in front of whatever this is, times x in front of this is a positive 1, so plus 1. So that's our answer for this. That was pretty simple, wasn't it? Okay, good. Okay, now let's do another problem. Now here's the bottoms up method. Let's say we have 6x squared minus 5x minus 4. Okay, so you remember where the red and the blue went, right? Well, I hope so. The red one went here. That was this number. So you do the same thing. Start off with the middle term. What is it? Negative 5. So go ahead and write negative 5. Now what you're going to do is multiply the negative 4 times the coefficient. And this one here, we have a coefficient. It wasn't an invisible 1. So negative 4 times 6 is going to be negative 4 times 6, which basically is equal to a negative 24. Okay, so now we need two numbers that add up to negative 5 and that multiply to negative 24. Okay, so we can make a little table here to kind of help ourselves out. We're going to try to make a negative 24. Let's not worry about the sign right now. Let's just find factors. So it's 24 and 1. Let me see, that would be 12 and 2. Then we could try 3 and 8. So 8 and 3 and 6 and 4. And that's about it. So let's see now. 24 and 1 differ by 23, so that's not going to work. 12 and 2 differ by a 10, so that's not going to work. 8 and 3 differ by 5. Okay, cool. So that's going to work. Well, the question is, what's the sign of the middle term? Negative. Okay, so that's going to get assigned to the bigger number, so it's going to be a negative 8. So we're going to go ahead and write negative 8 here and 3. So now, x in front of negative 8, x in front of positive 3, so we have x minus 8. Okay, so the negative 8 went here, and the 3 is going to go over here, and we have x plus 3. Okay, now, since we multiplied negative 4 times 6, remember we find on this problem over here, this first one, remember, we try to find two numbers that multiply to negative 2. Well, we're trying to find two numbers that multiply to negative 4, but we multiplied it by 6. So now we got to divide by 6. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to show this in green to show the next step. You divide by 6. So after everything's said and done, you're basically going to divide by the coefficient of the x squared term and simplify it. So now you're going to get x minus 4/3 and x plus 1/2. And those are your two binomials. Now, the bottoms up method is this. All you got to do is take the 2, put in front of the x, take this 3, put in front of this x. So that way you're going to get 3x minus 4 and 2x plus 1. And that is your final answer. Now, for those of you that are like, oh, I don't trust this, I don't trust it. Okay, you're basically multiplying this binomial by 2, which distributes here and distributes here, and the 2's cancel out, and you have a 2 in front of here. 3 times this gives you a 3 here and a 3 here. These cancel out, which gives you 3x minus 4, which is what you have here. Now, if you're still not convinced why that works, let me show you something. It's going to boil down to why you chose these two numbers. The reason why you chose those two numbers is because of this. What you're doing is geometrically changing the coefficient of the x term very cleverly into two pieces. So what you have basically is this, 6x squared, and now with this negative 8 and positive 3, it's negative 8x plus 3x minus 4. And when you add these two together, you get back the negative 5x. And if you actually factor these out, you'll end up getting the same answer. But this method really was just meant to show you how simple this is. So let's do one more problem. Okay, so let's say we have 3x squared plus 8x minus 3. Okay, let's set up our x. And we have, first of all, we have a positive 8, so let's go ahead and write that in, plus 8. So now, multiply negative 3 times this 3. And that equals a negative 9. Okay, so now, basically, we need two numbers that add up to positive 8, but at the same time multiply to negative 9. So let's go ahead and make a little chart here. And we need two numbers to multiply to negative 9. So let's do this. We've got 9 and 1, 3 and 3, and that's it. So we need something that differs by 8. And in this case here, because there's a negative sign here, that means two numbers got multiplied together. One of them was negative, one was positive. So that means that when you add them up together, we have to get a positive sign. So whatever sign this is, the bigger number is going to get that. So in this case, the sign here is positive, so that goes to the bigger number, and negative is assigned to the smaller one. So in this case here, we have a positive 9 and negative 1. So x in front of this and x in front of that, we get x plus 9 and x minus 1. And we go ahead and divide by the leading coefficient here, and in this case here it's going to be a 3, so we divide by 3, we divide by 3, we simplify and we get x plus 3, and in this case here we simplify, we get x minus 1/3. There's really not much we can do, and then what we do is use our bottoms up technique. Okay, well, what's underneath the 3? A 1. So if we put the 1 in front of here, we get x plus 3 back. Cool. That was simple. And the bottoms up technique here, well, we put the 3 in front of the x, and we get 3x minus 1. And that would be our final answer. And you can go ahead and check it by FOIL. So that's basically it. And I hope you kind of got the idea of what's going on here. So this is a really clever way to keep everything organized, so that way you don't have to jumble around in your head and do all this trial and error. It's one of the best ways to go about factoring trinomials that I've seen so far. So I would strongly suggest that you go over this video at least a couple times to make sure that you kind of understand the flow, and look at the colors that I used. They'll kind of help you for right now just to remember where things go. But when you're doing it with your paper and pencil, make sure that you guys understand where things go. So anyway, I hope this helped, and good luck with your tests and homework in the future, and thank you for watching.